Kevin, when do I get to see Shin Godzilla?
You get to see it today!
Hell yeah!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gorilla Whale, a Godzilla watch-along podcast. I am your kaiju consultant, Kevin Carpenter.
And I'm actually breaking the bit, Kayla Knudsen, because guess what? We cheated, and I just saw Shin Godzilla out of order because it was in the movies.
Yep. So see, audience, here's what we're going to do right now. We're actually displaced in time, more than we usually are, as we usually record these episodes a little bit in advance before we release them. But this one is very much recorded in advance. So as part of Kayla and I's timeline, the most recent Godzilla movie we've seen, besides Shin Godzilla, of course, was Godzilla 2000 Millennium.
Oh, yeah.
And with all the rest of our series, we've been taking pains to watch the Godzilla movies in order based on their release date. But Shin Godzilla was recently, as of middle of August 2025, re-released to theaters.
I'm sure many of our fans were, our listeners, fans sound so presumptuous. I'm sure anybody that listens to this podcast was probably in theaters this weekend seeing it.
Honestly, I should have passed out more of our business cards with our little QR codes on them.
You were busy going to the restroom.
I was busy going... Okay. It's a movie theater. It's a long movie.
Well, not passing out during the theater, but ahead of the trailers.
Yeah, no, after the movie, I should have just ran up to the front of the theater and been like, if anyone wants to hear two nerds talk about this movie, check out our podcast.
I did wonder, sitting in that theater, though it wasn't super full, I did wonder, I was like, I wonder if any of them have listened to even one episode.
So here's going to be our sort of experiment, though, in that this episode will be coming out down the line after we finish the Millennium era.
Yeah, it'll come out in chronological order. It's just that we cheated and I wanted to see it on the big screen, so we saw it. So
exactly.
I don't have the Millennium context or whatever or anything, but I do have a reaction for you guys.
Yeah. So our audience will have already seen your reaction to all the Millennium era movies, to Godzilla 2014, and then they'll be catching up to you watching Shin Godzilla, but they'll then be listening to a you that has not seen those movies.
You know, the problem, Kevin, is that I've seen the two best Godzilla movies, and it's all downhill from here.
I know, Godzilla versus Mothra and Godzilla versus Megalon, you're right.
I still haven't rewatched Godzilla -1 though since I saw it. I have not rewatched it for the pod, because I'm saving the rewatch for the podcast.
I was about to say, you gotta save that for the podcast.
Yeah, so I haven't seen it since I saw it in theaters.
All right, well, we saw Shin Godzilla in the theaters, and before I get into the whole bit, Kayla, just off the top of your head,
worth the wait.
Oh
my God, worth the hype. So good.
So good.
Wow, the cinematography, I really enjoyed a lot of the shots. I felt like they were really interesting, especially the ones where it was like they would put the actual bureaucratic text and regulations on the screen over everybody's faces while they were discussing which legal avenues they could use. There were these cool shots, like they were shooting from the table point of view up at people. I thought was really fun. You don't usually see that outside of medical dramas when it's like the patient POV maybe. I thought that was cool. The soundtrack was incredible. Yeah, I mean the entire vibe of it, of being very horror leaning disaster movie, was so cool. The Godzilla in question, horrifying, grotesque, disgusting, magnificent. Loved it. The first phase of it, when it was out of the water, I just have to say, I really love the attention to detail that it did not have eyelids, because as an aquatic creature, it would not have eyelids, and I thought that was great. What an excellent move there. I loved that we finally answered, what does Godzilla eat? And it's radioactive waste. Yeah, I love the usage of trains in this movie. When they threw a train early on in the movie. Loved that. You got to throw a train in a Godzilla movie. And then they weaponized the trains later in the movies. Loved that. Loved that they had several American characters and no American actors. I am enjoying this bit thoroughly. The only American actor in any Godzilla movie, I think, continues to be Glenn, which is great.
I mean, if you don't count the actual American Godzilla
Well, yeah,
movies.
and the Japanese ones, but they had my favorite character. I will vote for her for president, Patterson, who is supposed to be an American-born, like, of partial, like, American Japanese descent. Definitely not American. She spoke English. I mean, I already knew she wasn't because, like, you can tell, you know?
Mhm.
And then she spoke English, and I was like, yeah, definitely not American. Loved it. She was great, though. I'd vote for her for president. Yeah, the theme, like, really...
Worth the wait, huh?
Yeah, worth the wait. Let's get into it properly, because otherwise this is going to be really unstructured.
No, that makes sense. All right, cool. So historical context, and boy howdy, there's quite a bit of it. So in 2004, Toho released Godzilla Final Wars, which was the final film of Godzilla's Millennium era. So they went with their standard pattern. They let Godzilla rest after that. And then 10 years later, Legendary Pictures produced Godzilla, aka Godzilla 2014, because there's 5 or 6 different movies just called Godzilla. But that was the second American take on Godzilla, not counting the cartoon, and not counting the other cartoon.
Yeah. I haven't seen this movie, but I'm as familiar as one could be with this movie without seeing it because I worked at a movie theater the summer it came out.
Yeah.
So I've seen the end credits.
Well, as of this recording, you have no opinions about it.
As of this recording, I have no opinions on it.
But the previous episode, I believe, if I have the episode order right,
I had a lot of opinions on it. I had so many opinions, guys.
So, as Mark Twain said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. As we know, Godzilla 2000 Millennium was made as a response to the failure of Godzilla 1998. But this time, Shin Godzilla was made as a response to the success of Godzilla 2014. The commercial success, I personally still don't like the movie.
Sure.
And we went over that in our previous episode. In a December 2014 article titled Japan's Toho to produce new Godzilla for 2016, first in 12 years, a Toho staffer told The Hollywood Reporter, quote, "This is very good timing after the success of the American version this year. If not now, then when? The licensing contract we have with Legendary places no restrictions on us making domestic versions." And so we enter into the Reiwa era with Shin Godzilla, although it would be sort of called that after the fact, and also Shin Godzilla was technically still made at the end of the Japanese Heisei era, but not the Godzilla Heisei era.
Right.
Because that ended.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is sort of Shin Godzilla and Godzilla 2014 sort of marks a new era of Godzilla where there are simultaneously an American Godzilla being made and a bunch of Japanese Godzillas being made. Or I say a bunch, but really, right as of this moment, it's Shin Godzilla, Godzilla -1, and then an upcoming sequel to Godzilla -1, which I don't know which direction they're going to go numerically, if they're going to go Godzilla -2 or Godzilla 0. I'm very excited.
Oh, yeah. I bet it'll be Godzilla 0. That sounds not to make, random claims or stereotypes, but Godzilla 0 sounds much more like a title of a Japanese movie than Godzilla -2.
Makes sense.
You know what I mean? Like, if you told me Godzilla 0 was a movie, I'd be like, that sounds correct. That sounds like it was a excellent anime series in the 90s.
Maybe they'll have a little fun with it and be like Godzilla Absolute Zero or something like that.
Yeah. And
they also announced the next MonsterVerse movie as of this recording, like Godzilla X Kong Supernova.
Yes, that has Caitlin Olsen in it, right? Wait,
maybe.
No, not Caitlin Olsen from High Potential. The other Caitlin Dever. There's too many Caitlins. Caitlin Dever, Caitlin Dever from Last of Us and Booksmart, not Caitlin Olsen from High Potential and Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, that sounds fun.
And Hacks.
You
know what though? That'd be interesting.
We just had the Always Sunny Abbott Elementary crossover. Let's get the Always Sunny Godzilla crossover going.
I'll see what I can do.
So unlike Godzilla 2000, this Godzilla wasn't going to be a just back to basics Godzilla. We need to put a Godzilla out there to get the cultural aftertaste of the previous Godzilla movie out. No,
they get to have some fun with it.
They get to have some fun with it. Toho was going to get weird with this one. So for maximum weirdness, Toho brought on director Hideaki Anno, who was best known for the mecha anime Neon Genesis Evangelion. Yeah, you got those vibes?
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Get in the robot.
Shinji Higuchi of the Heisei era Gamera trilogy would also co-direct.
Okay.
But Hideaki was with the writing and Shinji was with the special effects.
Sick.
So while the original Godzilla drew many of its themes from the introduction of nuclear weapons in World War II, as we've covered extensively on this podcast, Shin Godzilla drew a lot more of its themes from more recent events. And here's where I get historical with the historical context.
History. Now we're getting to historical context that we lived through.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Not just historical context that we like technically lived through, but historical context that we have. I mean, I remember when this happened.
Yep. So on March 11th, 2011, the Tohoku region of Japan would be hit with both a 9.0 magnitude earthquake and a resulting tsunami. Those two disasters would also cause the Fukushima nuclear power plant to melt down, resulting in a Chernobyl-level containment failure. And I do literally mean Chernobyl level. On the International Nuclear Event Scale, it was scaled as a 7, which is as high as it goes. So the bad times.
Oh, yeah.
So the disasters themselves were devastating, but many noted a weak government response to the disasters as well. An independent investigation from the 2012 Japan National Diet also revealed that the Fukushima power plant had many deficiencies caused by, quote, the result of collusion between the government, the regulators, and TEPCO, and the lack of governance by said parties. Another quote, the accident cannot be regarded as a natural disaster. It was a profoundly man-made disaster that could and should have been foreseen and prevented, and its effects could have been mitigated by a more effective human response, end quote.
Feels very Chernobyl-esque.
Yep. Dr. Kiyoshi Kurakawa of Tokyo University would also state this in the report, that the fundamental causes of the meltdown were, quote, to be found in the ingrained conventions of Japanese culture, our reflexive obedience, our reluctance to question authority, our devotion to sticking with the program, our groupism, and our insularity. What must be admitted very painfully is that this was a disaster made in Japan.
Okay.
So, end quote. So, an earthquake, a tsunami, and a nuclear meltdown hit Japan on the same day, and an investigation reveals that the effects were made much, much worse because of a weak government response, a network of corruption, and a Japanese culture of groupthink and not questioning authority. Keep all of that in mind, as on July 25th, 2016, Shin Godzilla is released.
I will say, the interesting thing about watching these movies, and I think what will be the very interesting thing about watching more of the American-made Godzilla movies is that, and I haven't lived in Japan, you know, I have a very, very limited, true understanding of Japanese culture, you know. But it was watching that movie, you do get the sense of like, this feels like a very Japanese movie. In the sense of like, not only does it like feel like a Japanese movie in the sense that like the convention, like the filmmaking conventions and things like that, but just in terms of it being a made in Japan disaster that they are basing this off of. And that's something that I like really appreciate and think is very, very cool. In this, like, obviously this comes from like a tragedy, you know. But it's just very, very cool to see countries making art that can only be made in their country. Because we live in America and we mostly see American stuff. Obviously, like, we are watching a lot of very specific Japanese foreign films, and I watch foreign films from like other things, and I like a lot of like imported media and whatnot too. But it's always so fun when you get something that's like, yeah, this is so specifically from one culture. And yeah, I mean, if you guys think that movies are like really homogenous or all the same, might I recommend watching? I mean, this is a Godzilla podcast. Everybody's watching Japanese movies. I don't know. I'm preaching to the fucking choir over here. But I just, like, it's neat.
I think also if you feel that Godzilla movies are all the same, watch this one.
Yeah.
Because I love the cinematography on this one, just how fast the editing pacing is,
Yeah.
but also it cuts between like traditional camera shots, but also it will cut between like phone footage of a disaster.
This is one of my favorite trends, actually, of the 2010. It started mostly in the 2010s and the 2020s of this almost mixed media, as mixed media as possible within movies. I think it's wonderful. Well, it's so creative and fun.
And it's really good because this movie in particular emphasizes that Godzilla is a disaster.
Yeah.
You know, when you cut in the beginning of the movie with like, oh, these tunnels are flooded. There's this strange steam coming from the bay, and you have all of these different shots of people filming on their phones like, oh, what's going on? Oh, I got to exit my car. Oh, we're evacuating. What for? Da, da, da. And it's like news reports and stuff like that. It really helps set the scene of like, oh, this is happening to a city full of people.
Yeah. And it's a really great way of establishing very quickly, like, okay, Godzilla's not a known factor in this universe, which if you, like, I went in not knowing anything about Shin Godzilla other than it's supposed to be really, really good and very horrifying. That's it. Like, I didn't know whether or not it was supposed to be a sequel from the first one or what. So very quickly, it was able to establish to an audience that had probably seen Godzilla or at least knew of Godzilla. These people don't know about Godzilla, and it felt like a very realistic reaction to something like that happening, which, and I believed it, because one of the things that can be really, something that happens a lot in genre media is that the audience is so genre savvy that either the movie compensates by making the characters act very quickly in a genre-savvy manner, which can be really satisfying sometimes, or they will kind of push the needle to the other edge, to the other end, and it feels like people are really slow to react. And this, like, the whole point is that the government is slow to react, but it felt so believable and real. It didn't feel like unearned, you know?
And part of it is this is a satire of government response. Yes. I tell people that Shin Godzilla is Godzilla.
It's like a black comedy.
Yes.
It was funny.
It's Godzilla, but from the point of view of the bureaucracy that has to deal with Godzilla. Yeah. And this movie is about how traditional Japanese bureaucracy is bad, but also bureaucracy can be good because that's the only thing that can actually combat Godzilla is bureaucracy that's pointed toward Godzilla. Yeah,
it's interesting too because this movie was very frustrating as an American because I think that at least speaking from personal experience as an American who's watched a lot of American-made disaster movies where America is, you know, the hero of it, I was like, y'all need to fucking move. This is a time for action. Launch the missiles now. It's vulnerable in the streets. Its gills are wide open. It's a big red target. Go, go, go. Deploy the F-52s, the B-2s, the F-16s, all of them. Go, go, go. And it was incredibly frustrating to watch them squander the opportunity to do anything. However, I don't know that I also don't know, you know, the super inner workings of how American governments and the military would respond to a Godzilla type attack on American soil because America hasn't really had to deal with a lot of, like, the last time there was an attack on American soil was 9/11, and we did react really quickly to that, but I think using 9/11 as like a example of like, well, if a Godzilla attacked New York, America would react, you know, so quickly. I feel like, yeah, probably because America's bureaucracy is structured differently. Yeah. But I also feel like I don't personally have enough knowledge to say that definitively. It's just like a gut feeling kind of a thing.
I mean, also let's frame this as, you know, okay, so America's current response to, let's say, hurricanes here in the year 2025.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is it's like, we can talk about the American government with any other president, and I would be like, probably there would be really decisive military action that would be, there would be a lot of casualties, but it would be the kind of thing that there would be mass evacuation. Like, I feel weirdly confident under any other president that the American military would mobilize very effectively against a Godzilla level of threat on American soil in like this day and age, well, not in this day and age, but in the with any other president. I don't know what the fuck Trump would do. Honestly, either he would be like, take that sucker down, or he'd be like, I don't know, it's not happening. Either he's denying that Godzilla's in New York, or they're immediately nuking New York in an overblown response. I could not.
So
we would have our own problems, is all I'd say. We'd probably have a different type of problem than the problem that they are having in Shin Godzilla.
But this movie is also, it does talk about the potential American response as well.
Yeah.
Like, the Americans come in really quickly on the response.
And because Americans already know. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Because in the Godzilla, American Godzilla, it was like the French. It's all the French's fault. And this time, America is culpable for Godzilla. There's even a line about like Godzilla, like the Americans want to nuke Godzilla and wrap this up really quickly because they don't want it to get out that they probably already knew about it before it attacked Japan, because that would be a bad look. I was completely fascinated seeing the Japanese point of view about America's involvement in a modern Godzilla movie where Godzilla is not the result of nuclear testing in the Pacific, but instead of like dumping nuclear waste. It felt really interesting because I was like, wow, America's playing a very complicated, morally gray, like very self-interested, but also very altruistic in the sense that it's really mostly just helping itself. It was so juicy.
Well, I think this is also a movie about Japanese bureaucracy, and so there's a lot of comparisons of like the directness of American bureaucracy versus the indirectness of Japanese bureaucracy.
Yeah, it was very fun to see, but also it's like America ultimately had the wrong response, because if America got to nuke it when it wanted to nuke it, that would have been the wrong move. That would have been because they had another solution that would result in less casualties. So it was really cool to see them play off of each other.
Let's get into the summary.
Yeah.
So, by the way, audience, normally my routine with this is I'll watch the movie and then let it simmer, and then I'll like go to my Google Doc and have the movie playing in the background at like 2x speed. So I'm writing up all my bullet points. We just came back.
We literally just came back from the movies.
Yeah, we drove back from the movies. We set this up. We're talking about it.
I mean, Kevin's seen it before today, but I just saw it. And now we're talking about it. So it is very fresh.
So I made some bullet points in advance, but at some point I may just be reading straight off of Wikizilla. So first off, as I am going through this summary, for anyone who has not seen Shin Godzilla but is listening to our episode about Shin Godzilla,
you've already been spoiled.
Yeah, these people must exist. So the framing of this movie is through the eyes of the Japanese bureaucracy. There's a lot of rapid cuts. Okay, cool. I thought you were waiting on me to stop before placing on it. Kayla also still has her Coke from the movie theater.
Yeah, it's not a Coke, it's a Pib.
It's a Pib?
Yeah,
that's a lot of Pib.
It's Pib with a little bit of vanilla Pib splashed in for dimension.
Phenomenal. So the editing of this movie is every action I tell you about in this summary is going to be accompanied by like 3 cuts to like 3 different boardrooms.
I couldn't read all the subtitles quickly enough. I could not tell you anybody's name or title because I had to focus on the dialogue. There was a lot of information coming at us fast for those of us that cannot speak Japanese.
Well, and the other thing is there was a running bit where every single official that appeared on screen would have a little name tag. But also, they would reintroduce that name tag if they got a new position in the government.
Yeah.
And because this is a disaster, everyone's getting new positions because they either get a promotion or someone died and they got a promotion.
Yeah.
And so literally near the end of the movie, our main character gets a little name tag with like the 5 different titles that he has now because he's in charge of the disaster response that takes up half the screen.
It's a funny gimmick. Like I know, like even though I couldn't read because I can't pause the AMC, I couldn't read everything quickly and I focused on the dialogue. I could tell like what the gag was, and it was a good gag.
So, the summary of the movie, loosely described. So, this is a new Godzilla. So, we start out with the Japanese Coast Guard finding a yacht
Classic.
abandoned in the bay, the Glory Maru, which is a reference sort of to the Eiko Maru from the original movie. And of course, that boat has been referenced from other Godzilla movies as well. But anyway, Japanese Coast Guard, they find an abandoned yacht. There's some origami, there's some shoes, there's some weird papers, and boom! Suddenly the boat shakes as the Tokyo Bay has a giant bit of steam coming out of the water, and a bunch of red liquids starts breaking through one of the underground tunnels underneath the bay, and everyone's like, wait, what's going on? And so, of course, they get a meeting together. We get a bunch of government meetings together.
Yeah.
So we get Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary Rando Yaguchi. He is our main character. He's our point of view guy.
I did not catch that his name is Rando. That's so funny.
Yeah, well, we're going to call him Yaguchi.
Yeah.
Because this is Japan.
I knew it was Yaguchi. I didn't catch the Rando
No, it's
part.
Rando Yaguchi. So
Some Rando.
So he's our point of view character in this sea of government officials. He is the first to catch on that, hey, maybe this disaster was caused by a giant creature, because I'm actually watching the footage of all these like iPhones that are like putting it online and being like, hey, is this a monster? What's going on?
You can see that it's a monster. And of course, this is pre-AI because it's 2016. So
Yeah. But of course, the prime minister and the rest of the government officials refuse to believe him. They're like, okay, let's go through all of our options. Maybe it's a volcanic eruption or something like that. You know, let's set up some committee meetings. His mentor, scroll.
To be
There's a lot of
fair,
names.
who the fuck would have guessed kaiju? You live in a normal world.
Yeah, no, at that point,
Like, you're like, I don't know, like, if you're not seeing the footage, it's a little, and that's what I mean by it really was walking a good line of being both genre savvy and also feeling realistic in its reaction.
And yeah, and also another realistic reaction is his mentor, Hideki Akasaka, who is the aide to the prime minister, being like, hey, chill.
Yeah.
You know, I vouched for you, bud. Like, maybe don't speak up during these meetings where everyone needs to look at another guy and say, hey, I said this. And then that person turns around and says, he just said this. And then another person turns around and goes, she just said this. I love that running gag, by the way.
Be quiet in the war room, Zuko. Don't speak out of turn.
Exactly. So the prime minister and the rest of the government officials refuse to believe him. And then there's a news report of a giant tail that comes out of the water. So everyone's like, oh, hey, it probably is a giant monster. That's bad. So, okay, maybe it's a giant monster, but it probably can't come ashore. And Yaguchi does get So first off, they get a bunch of high-level biologists to come in, and they're just like, hey, can you give us any information on this? And all three of them are just like, well, we can't risk our reputation. We don't want to make any inferences. We don't have any information on all that stuff. This is just from, like, iPhone footage.
Cowards.
And so Yaguchi gets, like, a college friend who's, like, a low-ranking environment official, and she's immediately like, okay, there's gills, there's legs, it could probably come ashore. Like, she's making inferences.
Yeah, and there's, like, upper-level biologists are trying to be like, it can't come ashore, it's too heavy, it would be crushed under its own weight, and she's making more... She's not relying on conventional wisdom and, you know, what we know about creatures that we've already studied. She's looking at the actual problem and being like, I'm looking at this thing and I'm telling you it has these capabilities and this anatomy and this and that. And the whole thing about, like, she's directly looking at the problem and saying what exactly is happening instead of going off of the reality that we think we have, even though reality is rapidly shifting. Loved it.
Yeah. It is another running theme in this movie that everyone who is more obsessed with their reputation and the consequences of taking too urgent of action on that reputation are useless. And Yaguchi keeps surrounding himself with people who are like, I don't care about my reputation. I want to get the job done.
Yeah.
So another running theme in the movie. So Prime Minister does a press conference. He's like, hey, it's a giant creature. It's going through the river. There's some damage, but don't worry. I've been assured by top men that it can't come ashore. Someone whispers in his ear. It is coming ashore.
Sir, the Godzilla has hit Tokyo. The second Godzilla has hit the town.
No.
Notably, they told the prime minister, don't say that it can't come ashore. And he went off script because he's like, we have to reassure the people. We can't incite a panic, which harkens back to the original Godzilla of them not trusting the public with information because they feel like the public will react badly. But the problem is, of course, then the public is deeply uninformed and ill prepared when things escalate to an extremely dangerous position very quickly. Like it felt so authentic to so much. It was like, wow, this whole movie really felt like the filmmakers being like, in 1954, Ishiro Honda made a scathing documentary on Japanese culture, government, and current affairs, and also criticized America at the same time too, as subtly as he could in an occupied post-war Japan. And these filmmakers came on the scene. They're like, "Guess what's changed in 70 odd years? Nothing." And it was chilling to be living through the 20s again. I really respect their forever eternal screaming that they are going through.
Speaking of eternal screaming
Mhm.
and some things changing, we have Godzilla attacking Tokyo, but this is a weird Godzilla. Godzilla is
it.
very clearly in pain.
Yeah. Oh,
It-
poor creature.
It is so it only has two legs. It's about the size of a large boat, I'd say.
Yeah, like pretty big boat.
Like a pretty big boat. Like it barely
A ship.
it barely fits in the river that it's in, but it could still be in the river.
Yeah.
So it is very lizard-like, yellow-orange in color, big googly eyes that look just silly.
Big fish eyes.
Big fish eyes. And also big open lung gills that are constantly bleeding.
Yeah.
So this thing is just having a bad time, but it's also like it's waddling through the streets, and it's like a very strange take on Godzilla. Don't worry, we're going to get to our regular boy Godzilla, but this is like sort of the first stage of like, ooh, this thing it's a problem. It's a manageable problem, but it's a problem.
Yeah.
And
they should have launched the missiles at it when it was crawling through the streets in a much more manageable size with lots of open wounds.
Well, see, that's what happens is the prime minister, he's reluctant to activate military forces in Tokyo, but after so many different frickin' communication chains of an official looking at an official and saying, we need this to be authorized. And then that official turns their head and goes, we need this to be authorized. And then another official turns their head and goes, Prime Minister, this is your decision. And we do that scene like 5 times.
Yeah.
It's so funny. The prime minister is like, okay, let's just activate the helicopters. And so the helicopters come out and they see the strange Godzilla. But during this time, Godzilla has evolved into his technically third form. There's a first form where he's aquatic, where he's just in the water, and then he comes out, and that's when he has his legs. And in his third form, he grows his little T-Rex arms, and he's standing on his 2 legs, so he's like standing tall, but he still looks pretty goofy. And so the attack helicopters are looking at him, and they're like, all right, we can fire at him. We can take him out right now. Let's go. And then the prime minister is like, wait, hold your fire. There's like 2 civilians in the firing range.
It is a really interesting, because on the one part of to give the prime minister some credit, part of his reluctance to launch military forces, aside from there being a lot of legal loopholes that they need to go through, well, not loopholes, but legal, what's the hoops? There's a lot of legal hoops that they need to jump through in order to mobilize military forces. That just seems to be how their military is set up.
Oh, yeah, there is that one scene where they're like, what authority are we authorizing this attack under? Oh, we can use this article that says that we can react as long as it's like an attack from an aggressor. And it's like, yeah, but that's an aggressor that's like of another country or equivalent force.
Yeah, this is not a country, it's a creature. Yeah.
It's that kind of movie.
They're getting bogged down in the literal letter of the law. However, the prime minister is also concerned with civilians being in the warpath. Like that is very much something that is brought up. And yes, they hold fire because there's like 2 senior citizens crossing a street near Godzilla. It is commendable to try and reduce casualties. The value of human life is important. You don't get the impression, though, that it is actually the correct choice to be making here, because, like, the idea, I mean, it's kind of the trolley problem, and the idea is there's already been countless casualties. Who knows how many more will come? Like, we need to strike now and strike quickly. And I think ultimately they did make the wrong decision by inaction, because look how many more casualties, like, do we know for sure they could have taken down weird worm Godzilla in that moment? No, we don't know that for sure, but they could have. And then Tokyo wouldn't have been fucking irradiated.
Yeah, I wonder if there's also a running theme of like there are problems in this world that swift government response could take care of now, but if we let them simmer, then they're going to be much harder to deal with later.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it is like,
So Godzilla runs back into the
yes,
ocean.
he runs away.
Yeah, they don't fire at him. Godzilla runs away. He goes back into the ocean.
Problem solved.
That's kind of the attitude. Everyone's like, "Are we good? Are we good?" I mean, let's come up with
And
a plan in case he comes back. But like, I think we're good.
It's interesting. It's interesting too because it does kind of vindicate their inaction, because they're like, well, we didn't have to fire and it ran away.
Yeah.
And now we're not responsible for civilian casualties as collateral damage.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. We didn't have to make the tough call, and now that problem just kind of took care of itself, and hey, we just kick it down the road.
It turns out if you ignore a problem long enough, eventually it will stop being a problem, right? No.
So Yaguchi, he mobilizes a team to come up with a plan for another Godzilla attack. So Ministry of the Environment official Harami Ogashira, she was the low-ranking like environment one who like actually came up with like the observations. During this meeting, she hypothesized that Godzilla is powered by nuclear fission. And everyone's like, what? A creature powered by nuclear fission? That doesn't make it. Oh, he left like trails of radioactivity wherever he was. Oh, God, he might actually be powered by nuclear fission.
Because, and her hypothesis is simply, they're like, there's no way a creature of this size can maintain the level of energy that it needs. Like, it cannot bring in enough calories and it cannot produce enough calories to live. What is its energy source? And she's like, well, the most efficient energy source is nuclear fission. So obviously this thing, if it cannot be fully biological as we understand it, it has to be operating off of nuclear fission. That's the only like possible recourse solution that we would have knowledge of. And she's right.
Yeah. And by the way, another thing is that this team that Yaguchi brings together is
they're a bunch of nerds.
A bunch of nerds, outcasts, rebels. Yeah, rebel bureaucratic officials. Hell yeah, let's get the scientists together.
It's so sick.
The rebellious
ones.
Well,
and that's the whole thing is he puts together a bunch of like scientists and doers versus a lot of the committees have been politicians. And a lot, like, there's a ton of politicians in this movie, and a ton of politicians are our main characters because it's the POV of the bureaucracy. So it's really interesting to see that contrast happen. Because I do agree that many politicians are not effective.
Well, we do get another go-getter character joining the cast.
And she is a politician.
Special envoy from the United States, Kyoko Ann Patterson.
Yes! Patterson 2028.
So Kyoko Ann Patterson, her character is quarter Japanese. Her grandmother was from Japan, but she was raised in America, rose through the ranks. She's the daughter of a senator. English is her first language.
English is definitely her first language.
The character's first language is English. Played by native-born Japanese actress Satomi Ishihara. I'm just going to say this fun fact. She has said in multiple interviews that she had to say a bunch of English lines. She did not know English that well. It was so frustrating that she almost cried.
Oh, girl, you did such a good job. Well,
she did not do
a good job, but her performance was really good.
Yeah, there are a few other characters that do speak English, and it's very clear that it's like they're Japanese people who learned English. She was cast for her looks and acting ability.
Yeah, well, she did a great job, except when she had to speak English with an American accent, because she didn't have an American accent. She had a very thick Japanese accent. I was actually wishing that there was some like subtitles for there was subtitles of course for all of the English because we watched this in America. Or I'm sorry, there was subtitles for all of the Japanese dialogue, obviously. There was no subtitles for any of the English dialogue. I really wish that we did have some of that. We're already doing subtitles, so for the most of the movie, you might as well just throw in all of the subtitles. Sorry, there were subtitles for the English dialogue in Japanese.
Yep.
Not in English. So there was a few parts where it was very difficult. And like, listen, I have trouble with strong accents of any kind, okay? Including from people that are native English speakers. I have to watch Dairy Girls with the subtitles on because I by the end of the season, I'm like, it's, your ear develops or whatever. You get a lot better at recognizing it. But it was a little bit of a struggle. But her performance overall, aside from that, her performance was great. I loved her. Again, I'm voting for her for president.
Yeah, she has ambitions toward becoming president of the United States in like
40s.
10 years. In her 40s.
Just like Barack Obama.
Exactly. So it's like, I'm going to solve this Godzilla problem, president.
Yeah.
So.
And the other thing, too, is I love seeing the Japanese interpretation of how Americans act.
Yeah.
It's so delightful.
Well, yeah, she comes in, we just saw so many scenes of like very dignified, socially conscious Japanese politicians making sure that they're talking in like the right way. And then she comes in and it's just like, yeah, so we're going to make a deal, do a little information swap. And by the way, where's the clothing shop? I have not been able to change since I got here.
Yeah, it's great. I also love that she's wearing, this was such an interesting detail to me. When we first meet her, she is wearing a gown. It's a blue gown because blue is the America color.
Mm-hmm.
And a brown leather aviator jacket, like an old World War II style one, which I thought was a really interesting costume choice. And also such a look. I really want that kind of aviator jacket again.
She looks great throughout the movie.
Yeah, but it felt like a very, like, costume design is so important. And I felt like they picked that every choice in a movie is a deliberate choice. And there's a lot of meetings that happen. Like the meetings that happened in this movie, I can assure you there was a lot of meetings that happened.
Yeah.
Most of my job is just setting up these meetings. But the choice to have her in a gown and not in like a more typical sort of thing that like she was caught in the middle of something. She says that it was a big rush or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting because she arrives on the scene looking like very sophisticated and yet also is wearing this aviator jacket, which clashes with the gown. And I think that tells a lot about her character in terms of like she doesn't give a shit when like she does not stop to change into something that would be more respectable to wear to this meeting. Like, yeah. She's wearing that, and also, like, you see that type of aviator jacket on, like, Western characters in anime pretty frequently. It's, like, it's a very, like, because it's the World War II aviator jacket that the U.S. Air Force, like, the U.S. wore, and it's in the cultural, it became a part of, post-war, it became a part of American fashion, and so it's a indicator, it's a shorthand of like, look at this American wearing military uniform casually because we are a militaristic nation and we incorporate a lot of that into our casual civilian wear.
Yeah, she's a breath of fresh air in this movie, an instant foil to Yaguchi, but also an instant counterpart as well.
Yeah.
So she wants to do an information swap. Basically, she wants information on the creature and she will give information on disgraced marine biologist Goro Maki,
who U.S. intelligence has been tracking.
Yes, for some reason.
Yeah, don't worry about why.
Well, let's get into why, actually.
Well, she's like, don't worry about why. Like,
we just want to know about this guy.
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
No.
So this is kind of revealed like throughout the movie, but I'm just going to kind of go into all of it. So Goromaki, he was a biology professor who discovered Godzilla in this movie. He named it, and they have like a really cute scene where it's like, yeah, he named it Godzilla because after he was exiled from Japan, he worked with the American Department of Energy. So he gave it that like God, like he wanted to hit with that like God incarnate kind of thing. He gave it the American name, but then when it's spelled in Japanese, it's Gojira. So everyone's like, okay, so he named it Godzilla, but it's spelled Gojira, so we're gonna go with that.
Yeah.
And I like that they acknowledge that. And that's
fun.
It's fun.
It's cute.
It's fun. Speaking of names, the marine biologist's name is Goromaki. Goromaki was the same name as the reporter in Son of Godzilla and The Return of Godzilla, although I have not been able to find any sources that this reuse of the name was intentional. I think it's just a common name.
I feel like it's probably intentional.
Well, they're different characters. That's the thing.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Well, because Goromaki was a reporter in Son of Godzilla.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant the Japanese characters used to spell the name were different characters.
Oh, no. I'm saying...
My understanding of Japanese and Chinese, like those, kanji and whatnot, you can spell... There are, like, kind of different ways to spell things.
Yeah, no, I think that's with the Godzilla name and Gojira.
There's different ways. There's like 17 different ways to spell Ashlee in America, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like,
but with Goromaki, what I'm saying is that it's pretty safe to say that the reporter Goromaki in Return of Godzilla was probably a reference to the reporter Goromaki in Son of Godzilla.
Yeah.
But the disgraced marine biologist Goromaki probably isn't a reference to those characters. Or maybe it is. Like I said, I haven't found anyone saying that this is
I don't know how common of a name that actually is.
That said, his photo in the movie is actually Japanese film director Kihachi Okamoto. Director Hideaki Anno was a big fan of his work, and he put his photo in the movie as a cameo.
Oh, cool.
Yep. So Maki was exiled from Japan. His wife died from radiation poisoning. He went with the American Department of Energy. He was apparently doing some research on some nuclear waste dumping that happened about 60 years ago in the Pacific Ocean.
Who dumped the nuclear waste? Because I missed that.
Probably America.
Okay, so yeah. It's one of those things where it's like they don't say for sure. They don't know for sure, but it was probably okay. Because I had said at the top of this episode that this was a Godzilla that is not America's fault, but it is then.
Yeah, well,
that's fine.
The thing is, they have the little photo of like the barrels that are dumped in the ocean, and there's some like claw and teeth marks in there. So it's also disgraced marine biologist Goromaki discovered Godzilla.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is that they find his boat at the beginning of the movie, and he's gone. He's just disappeared, and all he did was leave a note that said like, "Do what you want," along with like his research. So it's kind of...
He committed suicide.
And it's inferred that he knew about Godzilla and was just like, you know what? Actually, I'm going to just let this happen.
He's like, I've lived my life. Fuck you.
Yeah. so
he's like, it's revenge.
Exactly.
He's engaging in a little bit of revenge, which is fascinating.
Yeah. So that's sort of the information trade. So now Japan and the U.S. are trying to work together with this problem. And the U.S. is like, yeah, we really want to take care of this for, some reason. Just want to make sure it's, taken care of,
We want to help. And it makes sense because America on the world stage is always the 500-pound gorilla. And also wants to be in everybody's business as much as it pretends that it doesn't want to be in, as much as its own populace is divided on whether or not we should be in everybody's business / whose business we should be in / how deep should we be in anybody's business, et cetera, et cetera. So it makes a lot of sense that the U.S. would be involved, even with like whether or not it was trying to cover up its own culpability or potential inadvertent culpability, whatever, in creating the creature. It also would, Godzilla could potentially be a valuable energy source. So America loves nothing more than valuable energy sources on foreign soil that it could liberate.
Woof.
And 2, am I wrong? And 2, Godzilla's in the Pacific fucking Ocean. Guess where America is? Also on the Pacific fucking Ocean. So there's a lot of like reasons for America to be involved with this and to be helping Japan. And it's really an interesting commentary on the modern US-Japan relation that is happening in this movie that is really fascinating, because as an American who doesn't pay attention to international affairs, that's not true, it's hyperbolic, but I have limited, our news media doesn't focus on international affairs, and I almost did international studies in college, and then I didn't. So it's great seeing other perspectives on this and learning more about all of it through movies about giant monsters.
Well, speaking of new perspectives, Godzilla appears again with a new perspective because he's twice as tall and he has stony skin and he looks a lot more like our traditional Godzilla. He's still got the bug eyes and he's a bit different. He's like, he opens his mouth and you can see the musculature. Like, it's very clear, like, this is a creature that shouldn't exist.
Yeah, it's horrifying. He evolved rapidly, outgrowing, like, his own skin. And something I think that's really interesting that I'm realizing now is, like, oh, he developed the stony skin because when he first came to land, he was pushing through a bunch of cars and it probably hurt. Like, he was causing a lot of destruction, but it's like he's like shoving his face through cars and he was bleeding a whole bunch. Like, his skin which proves his skin was penetrable, and they should have hit him with the tomahawks when they had the chance.
Well, here's the thing. In this scene, now they're like, all right, whatever weapons we have, just fire them all once. So they shoot the tomahawks at him. No effect. Those bullets...
Too little, too late.
The bullets just bounce off his skin. They have jets. They fire missiles. Nothing. They have a bunch of tanks. They fire... It's that scene, but it's in the same rapid editing style as they did with all the board meetings. So we, like, cut to a tank and we see, like, the treads hit the ground, and then we cut and we see the barrel move, and then we cut and we see it fire Godzilla, and then we cut and we see more tanks firing. It's so good. It's so good.
And they have to do the chain still of permission to fire, permission to fire, permission to fire.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting and very fun. Because I feel like, and again, much of my knowledge about how the boots on the ground of the U.S. military operate in terms of, like, the mechanism, the gears of war, it comes from Hollywood movies, which are often funded by the U.S. military, so maybe are weirdly accurate in some ways.
And boy, did we talk a lot about that in our previous episode.
Yes, we had much to say. But, like, you get the impression, I'm like, I feel like there would not have been, like, I think that when U.S. forces are deployed, the boots on the ground, the commanders on the ground have more authority to act. Like, they have, they've already been granted permission to act with authority and decisiveness. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that there is no bureaucracy or whatever. It's like, for U.S. military to be deployed on American soil in that capacity would have had to come from the commander-in-chief. But then it's like, at that point, I do think that the U.S. military command invests more power once that decision has been made.
And they can also make decisions much more quickly, as in this movie, right after the Japanese assault it's immediately like, oh, American stealth bombers are now coming in with, like, bunker busters to take down Godzilla. And the Japanese government officials are like, quick, let's hold a press conference to say this was our idea the entire time. Like, we're, they're just sending these guys in, but it's like, no, we negotiate a partnership. This is totally part of our plan.
Yeah, and it's like, fun. The U.S. military, as it would, has definitely been parked in barely international waters with as many, like, half of the Navy's aircraft carriers ready to go at a moment's fucking notice as soon as it was evident, like, as soon as they could.
Yeah.
I'm like, as soon as Godzilla, I mean, potentially even before Godzilla first appeared, they were already mobilizing to be ready, since they knew that the creature was out there. But yeah, you know that there's been U.S. aircraft carriers parked as close to Japan as legally plausible, and perhaps even in Japanese waters, actually, because they could have been under the guise of distributing aid. Because they do mention after the initial Godzilla attack that there's a lot of international aid coming, so that would give them a good reason to also be there.
Yeah. And so the stealth bombers are coming in. They're going to be dropping some heavy bombs.
B-52s, baby, let's go.
So all the diplomats are like, we need...
No, I'm sorry, it was B2. Was it B2s?
I think it was B2s, yeah.
Yeah, B2s, not B-52s. B-52s are old.
Yeah.
B2s.
So all the Japanese...
Stealth bombers. Sorry.
So all the Japanese government officials are like, oh, we gotta get out of here. So the prime minister and his cabinet are taking a helicopter out while Yaguchi and the rest of everyone else are taking the cars. That's bad because, of course, traffic jam. Everyone's trying to get out. So Yaguchi gets out of his car. He could see Godzilla, and he's just like, all right, everybody into the underground tunnels. Things about to get really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, things get really bad. To their credit, the stealth bombers come in. They drop some bombs. They do some damage to Godzilla.
Oh, yeah.
And Godzilla responds as haunting music plays in the background. He opens his mouth and his lower jaw splits into two as
It's
well.
sick.
It is sick.
It's sickening.
First, just miles of smoke comes out of his mouth and just covers the city.
Like steam.
And then it immediately turns into flame that just covers the city streets. And then the flame breath just becomes more and more concentrated until it turns into a pinpoint blue atomic laser that he fires through the buildings, through the stealth bombers. Just anything this laser touches just immediately blows up. It is the super weapons from Nausicaa Valley of the Wind. It's that. And some other, like, the American officials are like, we lost stealth bombers? How? And so they send in more to throw in more bombs. And then...
And you get some great American accents.
Yes.
The American accents were pretty good.
American accents.
But I could tell that it wasn't. You could tell that was not Native American. It was interesting, though, because pilots, of course, are trained to have a very calm demeanor, but even the way that they said time for payback, I was like, that's not the way that an Air Force, I don't think that's how an Air Force pilot would deliver that.
It's very enunciating. It's very time for payback.
Yeah.
And so as they're bringing in their payback, Godzilla arches his back and shoots out dozens of lasers from his dorsal fins. Audience, I was in the theater with Kayla for this one, and I see Kayla next to me put a hand over her mouth at this scene. Just, oh.
Yeah, my jaw dropped. Like the B2s, I did not know that he could do that. It was, I mean... the initial atomic blast was already incredibly cool and haunting and had great build up to it. And then he did the laser light show off of his back that just annihilated, just shotgun blasted atomic beams everywhere. So cool. It did look like rave lights. I need the edits. I'm gonna go on TikTok and find the edits where it's the laser lights combined with you know, the one anime rave song that...
Oh, Caramel Dancing?
Yeah.
If that's a rave song. There's Shrek raves. I'd go to a Godzilla rave.
Yeah. It was so cool.
Also, Godzilla kills the prime minister and his cabinet because one of his atomic ray beams hits the helicopter that the prime minister and his cabinet are in.
Yeah. So that's...
All the top government officials are now dead.
Ooh, no.
That said, Godzilla, after expending all that atomic energy, just kind of freezes in place. It's a running thing in the movie that Godzilla still has to take in a bunch of energy because he is both evolving and also expelling all of this atomic energy. So he just stops, and everyone, you can temperature check him, and they're like, okay, so he's probably going to be frozen for 15 or so days, something for a matter of weeks. You know, Godzilla's couple weeks. Godzilla is going to be standing there, and so it's we have to figure out something. But
ticking time bomb.
Most of the top-ranking government officials are dead. An interim government is established, and let's see, the 4 or 5 people who are in line to be prime minister were on that helicopter. So the new prime minister is the Minister of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries, Yusuke Satomi, who is an old man that's really more interested in his noodles getting soggy than being prime minister. Oh my
god, the worst fucking guy to step up to the plate. Christ.
It's so fun. It's
not
so
that
great.
I have a ton of confidence in our current chain of inheritance. But yeah, it was just and you thought maybe things were going to get better and they'd start, moving fast and breaking dishes. Nope.
Well, things get even worse because there's like some troops that find a dorsal fin that was taken off of Godzilla from the bombs, and it's still like mutating. So it's like, oh, this Godzilla might be able to asexually reproduce.
Off of large enough chunks of it that have broken off, so that we could be having multiple problems. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think they ever go back to that dorsal fin, so...
They don't go back to that dorsal fin, but it does lead to the conversation of, like, not only can this Godzilla make other Godzillas through asexual reproduction, which, like, hey, Godzilla 1998, good to see you again.
What's up?
But also, there's, like, one scientist who's like, oh, and this Godzilla could probably, like, sprout wings. Like,
Yeah.
it might as well happen at this point.
Yeah, I do think it is pretty funny that they're like, it could probably sprout wings and be capable of intercontinental flight. And everybody's like, yeah,
It might as
as well happen,
Yeah,
sure.
Might as well happen.
We're already living in a hell.
So things are really bad. Yaguchi and his group, though, are coming up with a plan. If they can throw some coagulant into Godzilla, maybe they can freeze his blood and stop his internal nuclear fission from happening. Hey, Godzilla versus Biollante, great to see you again,
Yeah,
too.
right? I know, I was like, hey.
Remember when I re-listened to Godzilla versus Biollante
Yeah.
before watching Shin Godzilla today, and I mentioned, it's like, this movie does not appear without Godzilla versus Biollante.
Yeah.
Like, you see the evolving forms, you see the coagulant, the coagulant serum to
The
stop
hot
the
blood.
blood. Yeah, all that. So Yaguchi, he gathers the troops. He's coming up with this plan to fill Godzilla with coagulant to freeze him, but they're having trouble, like, kind of cracking the code on his molecular biology, mostly because he's an ever-evolving giant creature from hell.
And it took a really long time to sequence the human genome. You try sequencing that thing.
Yeah. And they have this, like, big document left by Goro Maki that they can't really make heads or tails of. It's a bunch of lines and letters, and they're like, what does this mean? So
It wasn't enough that he killed himself. His method to save humanity from Godzilla also had to be cryptic.
well, they do figure out origami.
Mhm.
Origami saves the day. They fold it like one of those, like, elementary school, like, you know,
Fortune
1, 2,
tellers?
3, 4. Yeah, one of those fortune
Yeah.
tellers. And it's like, oh, okay, so this is Godzilla's molecular biology and a written down format of how he pretty much just takes whatever and turns it into whatever he needs. So it's like, oh, hey, this Godzilla could be the key to, like, unlimited energy, but also he's destroying Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the deal. So they're like, okay, we can make the coagulant now. It's going to take some time. We're going to have to call in every single favor. We're going to have to get Germany in on this. We're going to have to get France in on this. We're going to have to take all of the chemical companies that we have. There's a lot of international cooperation, which is
Speaking
great.
of international cooperation, there's also international uncooperation happening, notably with Russia and China.
Oh, yeah.
With Russia and China making moves to basically become in charge of Japan, following the head of state and the next several people behind it being annihilated in an atomic blast in a helicopter, and the general disaster that Tokyo, the capital, is in. They, of course, being very close geopolitically and historically enemies, are making moves to try and kneecap Japan by taking over authority and jurisdiction of Japan and its governance and whatnot, which of course is why America comes in to save the day and maintain Japan's autonomy and ally as a United States, or ally of the United States. It was which was, some fascinating, realistic geopolitical maneuverings happening, even within this potential existential threat to not just Japan, but the entire world.
Another example of politics always being with Godzilla.
Yeah.
Godzilla for vice president.
Yes.
Well, okay, speaking of America's intervention, though, how does America want to intervene on this situation, Kayla?
3 fucking guesses and the first 2 don't count. Drop the sun.
Yeah. So there is my favorite scene of the film is Yaguchi and Kyoko and Patterson. Do I call her by her first name or her last name, considering that she's the American envoy? I've been calling the Japanese characters by their last name.
You call her by her last name then.
Okay,
Equality.
cool.
Patterson.
Patterson. So Yaguchi and Patterson. Patterson is, of course, like, hey, America wants to nuke Godzilla. And Yaguchi's like, they want to drop a nuke on Tokyo, and the camera on a jib pulls out real far while they're having this conversation. Just kind of let that simmer.
Yeah, it's a wonderful moment. It's a long scene. It's one take. They are walking along these train tracks. And as the conversation goes on, the screen just gets bigger and bigger, leaving them, two of them, smaller and smaller in the corner until they start to straight up disappear out of the frame as it begins to just move away from them. It doesn't even like get big enough that they're like little ants. The frame just begins to move, push them out.
Yeah.
And there's this which of course creates this problem, like creates this feeling of like helplessness because, oh, you're already helpless in the face of this monster, and now the U.S. wants to step in with a nuke, which nukes have only been used in warfare twice, both times against Japan, and here again now the U.S., which we already had a Japanese Godzilla movie about the U.S. wanting to drop a bomb in Tokyo.
Yeah.
To take care of Godzilla. So it's nice to see the return of that. And here's the thing. It makes a lot of sense. That's the gut-wrenching, horrifying thing about it, because they have gotten to this point where it's like, well, how else are we going to defeat Godzilla if not with the most powerful weapon we have at our disposal, because nothing else has worked so far. And so it's a terrible moment where you get backed into a corner and it leaves you thinking, shit, is a nuclear bomb the answer? Which, of course, a nuclear bomb is never the fucking answer. Nuclear weapons are the reason that we're, like, it's so good because it's like nukes are the reason that we're even in this fucking thing to begin with.
And
really.
this isn't Heisei Godzilla where he stays pretty similar. So it's like, all right, this doesn't work. We can kind of come back and come up with another solution, maybe a satellite dish on his neck or something like that.
He's evolving.
He's evolving. He's evolving rapidly. This is going to be this is already unwinnable, and it's going to be even worse if you don't deal with it right now.
And so it's just totally gut wrenching, and it was my stuff. Like, I mean, I knew where it was fucking going. Like, as soon as the U.S. showed up on the scene as like a major character in this movie, like I knew they're gonna try and drop a nuke.
Yeah.
But oh god, it's
so good.
It's such a good messy little wrench that they're throwing into it.
So Yaguchi and Patterson, they use all of their political leverage to delay the nuclear strike and go forward with their new plan. So the plan, the coagulant plan, was originally called like the Yaguchi plan after like the main character. But then he's like, no, here's what we're going with. We're going with Operation Yashiori, which was named after the sake that was used to defeat Yamato no Orichi in Japanese mythology.
I think that's great.
Great name.
Just another thing I wanted to say real quick was Patterson tells Yaguchi, I was told to evacuate Tokyo. And like they make it very clear, like the U.S. is not immediately going to drop, like the U.S. is asking Japan for permission to drop the bomb, and like approval from the world, like they are going through the correct channels to do this. And they told Patterson, get out of Dodge, so they're not caught in the crossfire on this. And Patterson tells Yaguchi, I'm not evacuating. I'm not leaving this place. And she makes a note, like she confirms her grandmother was in Japan when the U.S. dropped atomic bombs. We don't know for sure if she was in Nagasaki or Hiroshima. She doesn't say, but it implies that she was perhaps close, at least, because the way that she words it was like her grandmother like lived through that happening, and I think it's a really interesting choice for her as a American. She is American. She's political, like she's a politician. We're acting in the interests of the U.S., but to still have this like sense of loyalty of wanting to stay. I thought it was really cool. It made her character, who has so far been seemingly very self-serving, for her to like want to stay and try and find a different solution. It was a really nice, like, it was great. It was like, oh, look at these humans. Look at these humans being humans, even though they try to act like they're, sleazy politicians that are only interested in their own advancement. Not all of them are. Some
Yeah.
of them have a fucking heart.
And to this movie's credit, there's a lot of scenes, especially in this part of the movie, where it's
Yeah.
like they ask a German lab for use with their supercomputer. And there's this one German guy who's like, hey, they might get access to some of our classified info. And then another person is like, no, let's just help them out. And
And I think it's interesting that the we don't really get a good look at the guy who initially tries to deny them access to the supercomputer, crack the coagulant code, but it appears that he sounds younger, and then the woman, it's a older woman who is like, have some faith in your fellow man. And I think it's really interesting that it's Germany that they go to. I think it's a significant and notable or a deliberate choice to do Germany, that Japan is going to for help in all of this, considering the history between those nations and also considering everything that Germany has tried to do to leave World War II behind. You know, it feels like a very full circle and, like, again, beautiful, like, moment.
And Patterson is also like, hey, you've gotten a lot of volunteers from the U.S. Marines and the U.S. Air Force and all that.
Yeah.
Like, you've gotten a lot of people who are also just wanting to help out.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of Americans that are
this is a movie about the inefficiencies of bureaucracy, but there's also a movie about, like, hey, when people, like, to actually save the world, you do need a bunch of people to come together. They just have to not be focused on reputation and factional infighting.
Yeah, and to the U.S.'s credit, they are, there's no way that you're going to get volunteer forces from the U.S. Air Force and the Marines to assist with this operation without them having the formal permission from the U.S. government to do so.
Exactly.
Like the U.S. government is petitioning to drop the nuke because they see it as its only recourse. And unfortunately, it seems like with all of the information that they have and the threat that they're up against, like, yeah, you know, I get it. I understand. It's probably the decision that if I was in the White House, I would probably be like, I think we need to drop the fucking nuke.
Yep.
And I hate it. But yeah. But it's also interesting that we see that they are still trying to do the other option, like really trying to make it like last resort.
Yeah. So final operation, final hour. If this doesn't work, goodbye, Tokyo.
And France is the one that formally moved the deadline for the nuke.
Oh yeah, there's also a lot more political leveraging. France uses their influence to move the deadline for the nuke to the UN. There's a lot of that going on. This is another mile-a-minute movie.
Yeah.
So the big operation. Godzilla starts to wake up. He's just been standing frozen for the past, like, 2 weeks. So we had our scene where Godzilla destroys a train. You always got to have that scene. And now the trains are fighting back. They loaded up a bunch of explosions in the trains, and they just send them right into Godzilla's feet.
Revenge of the trains.
They do that, like, twice.
Yeah.
And so Godzilla's mad. He's woken up. They blow up some buildings to topple these skyscrapers on him just so they can get him on the ground. And then they send in a bunch of tankers and concrete mixers that are filled with this special coagulant. And they, like a big old dentist, they just have a bunch of cranes that are just shooting this coagulant into his mouth. 10%, 20%, 30%. Then Godzilla wakes up and just smokes that whole group. And so they have to send more explosive trains and topple more buildings onto them, and they send in more concrete mixers.
They have a ton of U.S. drones, and they threw so many millions and billions of dollars of worth of U.S. drones at it in a kamikaze move to eliminate, like, the atomic blasts as much as possible.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is that this operation begins with a bunch of drones, specifically to, like, waste his atomic breath and his dorsal fin lasers.
First time a drone's done anything good.
There's another thing too where Yaguchi's like talking to Patterson. Is like, hey, so all these drones are probably going to be destroyed, and Patterson's like, yeah, we'll build Japan later.
Yeah. It's so funny. The Patterson's like cocksure swagger. It feels so. I'm like, yeah, this is so, like, American to just be like, honey, you want another drone? Yeah, I'll give you another drone. You can have how many drones do you need? Go see here's 10 drones. Go see a Star Wars.
Go fight a Godzilla.
It's so, it's funny because it's like, I usually get a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth about, the U.S. military because I have really, like the portrayal of the U.S. military in a lot of big blockbuster movies because
As we talked about in our previous episode.
as we talked about in our previous episode, because I think it's complicated. And I think a lot of time, like I've grown up in a very increasingly nationalistic leaning country
Yeah.
that feels very jingoistic and self-centered and trigger happy, etc., etc. I do have to say though, it was kind of fun to see the U.S. military. God damn, when the fucking planes do the thing, like, I am only human, man. I am only human. When they come in and when the B-2 got the hit and then when the drones come in and you're like, yeah, rah. Listen, I can have an intellectual view of realistic, like the propaganda and the way that this could make us complicit in military actions that we don't want to be complicit in.
But also, it's cool when things go boom.
But when things go boom, I'm like, rah, America, go, go, go.
Hell yeah. So they got all the coagulant into Godzilla's mouth. Godzilla gets back up. Everyone's like, oh god, it didn't work. We're going to get so nuked. And then Godzilla gets frozen. Solid.
Yeah, it happens like so quickly too.
Yeah.
They faked you out.
And the day is saved, and now there's a giant Godzilla statue in the middle of Tokyo, and everyone's like, oh god. Like you kind of expect an Independence Day style, like everyone throwing their hats in the air, like celebrating. No,
this is not an American movie.
Everyone is so tired. Everyone's like, oh.
Everybody it's like everybody collapses. It's like the air just comes out of all. They're just like, oh my god. You kind of just, there's no celebrating. It's just pure relief. They really all thought they were gonna die.
Yeah. And there's also kind of that feeling of like no one's entirely sure if it is over because this thing evolves. So they're like,
And it's interesting. They make a point at the end of the movie to say that Japan has conceded that the countdown for the nuke is only paused.
Yes.
That the minute Godzilla begins moving, the countdown restarts, and the countdown stopped at 2 hours.
Yeah.
So
that conversation is the ending scene of Yaguchi and Patterson on a rooftop looking over the Godzilla statue. And, there's some conversations beforehand. Japan is, of course, having to rebuild their government. Yaguchi's mentor is going to be a big part of it. Yaguchi also is probably going to be a big part of it since he was the one that led the Godzilla response. But throughout the movie, he's been very much like, I am just focused on dealing with Godzilla, even changing the plan from the Yaguchi plan to the Yamato no Orochi.
There's a lot of there's a lot of other characters throughout the back half of this movie being like, okay, Yaguchi, when you're prime minister, and he keeps being like, let's save the country first. Let's make sure there's a country in 10 years to even be prime minister of.
Like, he's still a politician, but that's like the farthest thing from his mind at this point.
Yeah, he's really trying to just save his ass.
But the beauty of this conversation is Patterson is like, yeah, so, we did this, and I'm still on track to become president of the United States when in my 40s. So, you'll be a great counterpart for me. And Yaguchi's like, yeah, or a Japanese puppet. It's
really fascinating to see. There's also a moment when they're talking about the decision to drop the nuke, and they got permission from the prime minister. The acting prime minister is talking about how he's going to go down in history as the prime minister that gave permission to drop a nuke on Tokyo. And their security intelligence guy is talking to Yaguchi, and they're discussing how all of these other countries want to, get in and control Japan right now and swoop in and manage all of this. And this idea of post-war Japan being a vassal state, which is what happened after World War II. And one of them says, post-war means there's no end. It's post-war is an eternal state, technically.
Yeah.
And it was just really, really interesting to see this Japanese perspective on Japanese sovereignty and its position on the global scale. It was interesting. It felt heart-wrenching, but it's also there was a lot of atrocities committed. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
it just felt so sticky. Like this idea of the national identity of Japan. As somebody who has a complicated relationship with her national identity as an American, like it just felt like really sympathetic, but in a very like different, it's a very different position that Japan is in comparison to America and stuff.
yeah.
And I just thought it was really interesting, and I thought it was really cool that this was again being explored in a Godzilla movie, because there's a lot of Godzilla movies that don't explore any of that.
Well, I mentioned before that this movie felt like an evolution, pun intended, of Godzilla versus Biollante, but really this movie feels like an evolution of Return of Godzilla. Because Return of Godzilla was sort of a commentary on Godzilla, but like, where are we now after 1954? And with Return of Godzilla is, well, here is Japan's relationship on the world stage during the Cold War. We're having to deal with both America and Russia and the nuclear problem in the background this whole time. But, we're not like post World War still rebuilding anymore.
Yeah, they're still they were still in a reconstruction phase, but they were not as big economically as they are now. And that's another running thread in this, is they keep talking about like the Japan economy, not just the cost of human lives, but the impact on the Japanese economy, the value of the yen, the stocks, the bonds, the GDP of the country, the GDP of Tokyo. Like, it's really interesting.
There's multiple conversations where they're like, if we don't deal with this Godzilla problem, I mean, not only is Tokyo going to become irradiated and there's going to be loss of lives, but also we'll have to default as a nation if our stocks fall.
Yeah.
It's just, this movie is very aware of all of the different parts of government bureaucracy, economic bureaucracy, everything that goes into running a nation, and how a disaster like Godzilla can mess all that up, especially if the bureaucracy of that nation is unable to fulfill it, unable to deal with it. And then all the geopolitical stuff that happens with that.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating movie.
It's a really, I'm like, the people that were doing this are deeply interested in politics, and I would be so keen to just talk to them about politics, because I feel like they have such interesting, valuable things to say. And I'm like, I feel like you could just tell me things that I don't know anything about or barely know anything about, and it would be such a fascinating discussion. It's like, to me, like, it's such a smart monster movie.
It's so
and
smart.
I
great.
love it. I love it. I love the implications of taking this disaster. Okay, here's the evolution of the Godzilla movie, of the disaster movie, of the kaiju movie, going through, okay, so what would really happen? Like, what would really happen to Japan's sovereignty? What would happen on the global scale? What powers are helping, and in what capacity? Russia and China are, they're not helping, but they're helping in such a way that would cut Japan at its knees. And I mean, ultimately, Shanghai, they make a comment that they get the tankers from Shanghai. So Japan still helps with Plan B. They're not outright not helping. Everybody's helping with Plan B, and to avoid the nukes. Probably, well, because one, dropping the nuke is the worst. It's terrible. It's awful, and nobody wants to drop another nuke. And if we drop another nuke, it further sets a precedent of using nuclear weapons. Which is bad.
Yeah, and in Return of Godzilla, America in that movie is like, let us drop a nuke, let us drop a nuke, let us drop a nuke.
Russia is also like, we could drop a nuke too, and drop nukes, not nukes.
Yeah, and then Shin Godzilla, America's like, listen, we're working with you as much as we can, but like, come on.
They're like, this thing could spread.
Yeah.
And we need to take it out while we can.
Speaking of this thing could spread, the final image of the movie is we zoom in on the statue of Godzilla, and specifically we zoom in on his tail. By the way, he also fires an atomic ray out of his tail at one point in the movie. It's so good. It's so good.
Scorpion blast.
I know. We zoom in on his stone tail, and out from his tail are a bunch of humanoid-looking creatures with the Godzilla crooked teeth, who were peeling themselves off of the tail before they were frozen. A final act of evolution that was stopped by this coagulant plan. Yeah. And it's a horrifying image that we end the movie on.
Yeah.
It's so good. So that's the end of Shin Godzilla. that started the Reiwa era. We got Godzilla back on track. We got the MonsterVerse Godzilla in the States. We got Godzilla -1 in Japan. We got another Godzilla coming out at some point.
We got several more Godzillas coming out because we got another American on deck. We got another Japanese one on deck.
Exactly.
Yep.
But Shin Godzilla was like, it hit like a bomb.
Yeah.
Like it was nuts. Of course, it was successful. And by the way, you mentioned the music earlier.
Mhm.
The music director for this movie, Shiro Sagisu, was also the music director for Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Well,
And
look at them go.
the score features various, Godzilla remixes, of course, but it also features various remixes of Decisive Battle from
Yeah.
Neon Genesis Evangelion. So
We
people
should
are like,
do-
oh, wow, there's a Neon Genesis Evangelion vibe from this. Yeah.
Yeah, get person who has only seen Neon Genesis Evangelion watching any other movie, getting a lot of Neon Genesis Evangelion vibes from this. We should do a bonus episode on the whole series.
I don't have time for that. God. Well, anyway, so yeah, ratings.
5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
5 out of 5 Godzilla.
Oh wow, what an incredible movie. This just
Listen, people who
Really
comment
good.
that we're too negative about Godzilla movies, this is the one we like. We like multiple ones,
Yeah.
but we love this one.
loved this one. Truly, the only complaint I have is please put English subtitles on the screen when English is being spoken by these non-native English speakers, because I was just having trouble. I mean, I could do that
Yeah.
at home. I'll get the DVD and I'll put the subtitles on myself, I guess.
You just put them on some tape, put them on the screen.
I
real
don't
quick.
even care that they're not American. At this point, I'm so charmed by their refusal to use American actors to play Americans in this big budget movie. They could. They could. Like, there's no, like, we live in a modern world where people are doing doing films in other countries all of the time. In America we use a lot of foreign actors, but I'm charmed by this decision. Never change.
So
Only Glenn.
we have just God, I miss Glenn.
I miss Glenn.
Yep. So we have reached one of the heights of the Godzilla film franchise.
And now I have a new question.
What's the question?
Kevin, when do I get to rewatch Godzilla -1?
Well, soon we have an anime trilogy coming up that is not regarded as one of the heights of the Godzilla franchise.
Great.
So that's what we're going to be watching next. Kayla, what are we watching next?
Well, what we're watching next is technically a lie because we recorded this out of order. But for you, viewer, experiencing this chronologically in a different timeline, as I scroll to the outro, okay. Next, we'll be watching Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters. Be sure to watch the Japanese version, not the English dub. If you liked this podcast, be sure to subscribe, give us a rating, leave a comment, and share with a friend. Follow us on social media. We got the links in the show notes. We also have a Ko-fi. You can support us there and get access to cool bonus content like extra episodes and access to the private Discord where you can talk with other geeks about Godzilla and all things Digital Kaiju. Check it out. Gorilla Whale is a production of Digital Kaiju Studios. It is hosted and produced by Kevin Carpenter and Kayla Knutson. Gorilla Whale has no official affiliation with Toho, Legendary, or any other companies associated with the Godzilla franchise. We thank you for watching along with us. Until next time, watch out for kaiju.
Watch out for kaiju.